Hey, Martha. I see you're muted. You're good. You don't have to turn your sound on. Just wanted to say hi as people come in. Hi, Ruba. I see you, Wen Chen. You can stay muted, of course. Just wanted to say hello. I saw you come in.
Hello.
Hi. Hey, Rahila.
Hi.
All right, we'll wait a few more minutes and see if anybody comes. But we have a very small group today. Week 2, maybe rain. I don't know what is going on. But it's 12:16. We'll start at 12:20 with my small group that is here. Do you guys have any Canvas questions or sort of small type questions that you want to ask before we get started? I'm just curious.
No, thank you.
Good. Yeah, you guys.
No.
I know Ruba knows how to do this class already. I think Martha and Wen-Chen, I think from reading your letters, I think you guys seem really comfortable with English. You guys know what you're doing. I got to look at a lot of people's stuff and do some grades for folks. So I think hopefully things are going okay. Things are going smoothly right now. So, but if anybody does have any sort of Canvas questions or needs anything, just let me know. Can I ask Martha and Wen-Chen, you can put this in the chat too, you don't have to talk, but can you, are you guys able to speak? Like if I put you guys in small groups today, can you talk or are you just here to listen? Can you let me know in the chat so I know and think about how to do our little tiny class today? So Martha,
Yeah, I can talk well a little because I have my son. He didn't went to daycare today because the power it was really bad to drive.
Yeah.
So yeah, I have to stay at home. But he's over there in the room. I guess I can talk. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. That's perfect. That's good information. I know Rahila and Ruba heard you too, so if we put you in groups, that I'm sure they'll understand too. How about you, Wen-Chen? You can type in the chat. You can tell me, can you speak in class today or no? She might
Me?
be. Wen-Chen. I see when I see Rahula and Rahila, when I see you guys with your video on, I think, okay, they're good. Ruba says yes. I know you, Ruba. I see you. Maybe when Chen's typing or she can't hear me right now.
Just call me, Professor.
Oh, yeah, I was just asking, since we have a really small group so far, I just wanted to ask, can you talk, like if I put you in small groups today, can you speak or are you just here to listen or what can you do in class today?
Oh, maybe I'm just listen today.
Okay, no talking. Maybe, or otherwise it's like just a two-person Rahila and Ruba get a private two-student class today.
Yeah.
Okay, then in that case, we won't even do small groups. We'll just do everything in a big room. And Wen-Chen, Martha, you can unmute yourself and speak whenever you want to speak, okay?
Okay.
Cool. We got one more person. Nuri's here. We have usually class gets small later in the semester. I'm a little nervous that it's only week 2, you guys, and we only have 5 people. But we'll start here in 1 minute. Hi, Nuri. All right. It's 12:20. Let's get started with our very small class. Well, it is very nice to see you guys. I know we only got 5 people, but it's still really good to see you, Nuri and Martha and Wen-Chen, Ruba and Rahila. I am glad you are here on this rainy day. I know, like Martha was saying, power outages and people. I know some people don't have internet and stuff, so I'm grateful. Thank you all for being here. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do a check-in and a warm-up. We're going to talk about this word ideology. Ruba, we talked about some of this in 325. So Ruba's kind of going to maybe be our teacher's assistant, or she can go back to being a professor like she usually is. And then we're going to talk more about stories, language, and culture as a way to introduce the first reading that we're going to do. Now, again, Ruba, you'll recognize this, why translation matters. We are not reading the whole book. We're really just reading a few pages to talk about some of these ideas in terms of, but instead of talking about language and culture, we're going to talk about stories and the connection between stories and narratives and culture in a different way than we talked about in 325. So we're going to talk about the first reading activity, and then I'll tell you sort of some of the lessons and stuff that I want you to talk about for what is coming up. So here's what we're going to do. So I was thinking about having us all in the big group, but I think actually when you guys know, when students know that I'm listening, I think sometimes you talk less. So I am going to put you into group, but just one big group so that you can talk to each other. And like when Chen, Martha, Nuri, if you guys can talk, okay, great. If you can't talk, you can stay muted, whatever you need. But I do want you to talk about two of these questions, and then I'll bring you back into the room with me here and we can talk about them. So one, what kind of Canvas or technology questions do you have? Are there any challenges with doing this class so far? This is just sort of like taking care of business question. And then the second one is a way for us to connect to some of the course material today and the lecture for today. And that is, what is the connection, in your opinion, your experience, what's the connection between stories and beliefs? You can review and talk about your own post for discussion 1 if you want to, because this question is connected to discussion 1, but it's not the exact same question, right? So I'm going to put you all into just one big group, all 6 of you, and I want you to talk about these 2 questions. I'll give you some time and then I'll bring you back and we'll all work together for the rest of class today. Any questions about what I want you to do right now?
No.
Cool. Thank you, Wenchen. So make sure, take a picture. You, like usual, I'll post this into your group, but take a picture, write these questions down. I want to make sure that you're ready to talk about them when you get back, right? Because I will ask you to sort of tell me some of the ideas you talked about in your group, okay? So let me get the breakout rooms ready while you're writing them down and taking a picture. Oh, we've got 7 people. You know what? I might do 2 rooms then. Wenchen, Ruba, Nori. Oh, I am gonna do one thing. Okay, I'll send you to the groups right now. Like I said, if you can talk, I hope you will talk to each other. If you can't talk, kids at home, stuff's going on, that's crazy, that's fine. Remember, you can always type in the chat or just tell your group, I can't talk right now, but I'll give you a few minutes. So hopefully you can bring back some ideas for us to play with at the beginning of class here. So the rooms are gonna open up right now. Great. Hi. Hi, welcome back. Group one's back. Group two is coming back. Hi, Nivya's in there all alone, which means she might not be at her computer. But she'll get kicked out in 14 seconds, no matter what. Great. So I hope it was nice, or hopefully you got to talk to some people. Again, I know, like I said, we've got a small group today, but I'd love to start with question one to answer any of the computer stuff, Zoom stuff, Canvas stuff, all that stuff first. And then, of course, start to talk about the real, the ideas that we're going to start to really explore in our first couple lessons here. So any questions at all about that for anything we want to talk about for question one, Canvas issues, technology issues, how to do this class? Any questions there at all from anybody? You can always unmute yourself or type in the chat, whatever's best for you.
don't. Yeah, I'm good with it.
Cool. Nuri says he's good. Ruba, Rahila, how are you guys?
Good.
Cool.
Good.
Great. Martha, Wen-Chen, anybody, anything to add here?
No.
Great. Oh, I love it. Okay, then I
Oh,
did.
I'm good.
Perfect. Oh, that makes me happy. So there's one thing I will add real quick, just if people are watching this at home and you do have a question, if you're watching the recording. So remember, if you're watching the recording, you had to get there by clicking here again. I'm on the homepage. This is our homepage, live support materials. I think just from looking at YouTube, definitely some people found it and were able to watch it. So you can always download our PowerPoint from last week. The link to the Zoom recording will open here. The link will take you to YouTube, and then of course you can always turn on the captions too. So if you can't understand something or need to see the words written, pause, you can see the captions right here to turn them on if you want to. So, and then there was only one other thing I wanted to show you all, which was I got to grade what I think everything except for our discussion activity. So I got to read all of your beautiful letters and give you some feedback. So I just wanted to make sure that you can see my comments in Canvas. So if you click grades, of course, you can always see your grade here, but especially for the introduction letter, if you click the assignment, you'll see your points. And then I just want to make sure that you can see the comments here. This is a sort of just a silly example because it was a note to myself, right? But here's where you can see, thank you for writing your letter. I appreciate the story you told about your family. I'm excited to work with you. Of course, for each of you, I gave you much more specific feedback than this, but just if you're watching the recording at home, this is how to make sure you can see my comments in Canvas. And of course, this I'm saying this in week 2 because when we start to do longer assignments or any of the writing assignments, of course, you'll be able to see my feedback there as well. And we'll talk much more about what type of feedback and how to use my feedback later, but I just want to make sure people know where to get it or where to find it. So again, if you start on the home page, you just click on grades, click on the assignment, and if you see this little talk bubble here, these two chat, looks like a text message icon, you can click that and you can see the comments there too. So you can see them there, or go right to the assignment and look at the notes or the comments there as well. So hopefully if you're watching at home, you know where to access all of this stuff. Okay. So then because you guys were all good with this, I can delete this slide in PowerPoint. No tech questions. That makes me happy. How about this one? You know, we're taking 350. We're taking an advanced literature class, right? We're going to read novels and short stories and plays. Well, we're not going to get a play this semester, I don't think, but definitely poems and novels and short stories. And I got to read. I didn't give you grades yet for your discussion. I wanted to give more people time to post, but I got to read some of your ideas. So let's start to make some connections here. How do we think stories are connected to beliefs? What'd you guys say in your groups? And I'd love to hear anyone who wants to speak, please speak. And of course, anyone who wants to speak in the chat, please type in the chat. What'd you talk about?
Professor Jeff, we cannot see your screen. We only see you. Do you share something on your screen?
It should be sharing. Let me try again. Someone else was having this problem last week. Can you guys see? Ruba, Rahila, can you see my screen?
Now, yeah, I can see it now, yes.
Could you see when I was talking about in Zoom, could you see Zoom
Yes.
or no? Or I'm sorry, at Canvas.
Yes.
Okay, so again, just in case anyone else was having that problem, I hope it wasn't the case, but again, I just want to make sure you guys see my comments because it takes me time to give you the grades and write the comments. So if you click grades, click on the assignment where I've got comments for you, you can see my comments over here. Thank you, Nori, for telling me.
Thank you.
Great. So what did you guys talk about for this kind of big, last week people were saying they want to improve their critical thinking. This is definitely a critical thinking type of question. What did you talk about in your groups?
I'll go first. So
Please.
we're discussing the group. Actually, I told them that there's different kind of stories. There's fiction stories. There's real stories with the facts, and that they actually take events in the past. So those, especially like religion, like there's some stories related to belief, like some people believe different religion. Those stories, when they connected with belief, according to their religion, they have some kind of facts to provide to people, say that really happens. That's why they, they have the paid to believe that religion. So, and there's some stories, like Rupa says, for more entertainment. There doesn't have any connection with belief. It just, it could be fiction stories.
Love it. Great. Anything else? Nuri got a lot of good stuff in there, but anybody want to add to this?
I want to add.
Please, Ruba.
Don't believe all the stories you read or see, because some of them are not true, or for example, in a movie, we have all the characters have accident, have go to prison, be in the hospital for a long time. These things are not for all persons, but they do it for all the characters in the movie. So it can't be believed. It's overdue.
Okay, I love this. I love this. Great. Okay. Anybody else want to add? So I wrote beliefs versus facts. That was kind of something that Nuri and Ruba mentioned, and I want to talk about that. But so I'm just sort of leaving a note for myself. But I love that, Nuri and Ruba. Thank you. Anybody else?
Professor, what about traditions? Sometimes
Tell us.
People have certain traditions which they strictly follow. It's kind of things that they believe in, and they are not religious as well.
Right. Okay, I love that. I'm going to say that you didn't say this word, Fazal, but I'm going to say reinforce different beliefs or traditions. Right, and what I was going to ask there, Fazal, is what's the connection between these traditions and the stories? And I think you guys have all sort of touched on this in one way or another, connected to it in one way or the other, and that is oftentimes stories, especially when you think about religious stories in the Quran, stories in the Bible, stories from different religious traditions in India and China. Humans have told these stories for a very long time, right? And that's kind of what I mean by that word reinforce, is a way to like share the beliefs, make the beliefs stronger, or in this case, maybe traditions, like you were saying, Fazal, maybe it's not a religion. Does that make sense about how stories sort of reinforce or connect to these beliefs? Does that make sense?
Yes. So most of those stories that we read or we hear, those stories are full of, are directly impacted. Our stories are full of those traditions. I mean, I don't know how to say this. So those stories talk about all those traditions.
Yes, good. I love it. And I think what Fazal is saying there too is something I was thinking about for when Ruba was saying, don't believe everything you see, right? I think that's true. Especially nowadays, a book, a movie, it might not present facts, right? It might not show things that can happen or do happen. But I do think all stories give us some feeling about what we should think or what we should feel, even if we don't agree, right? Even if you have, and we'll talk more about this as an example, but what can I say? I think this is kind of what Fazal was talking on, is all stories have some belief in it. And do we agree? Do we disagree? Does the belief last? Is it connected to religion? Is it not connected to religion? You know, for example, any movie, like Ruba was talking about, characters have an accident, right? Maybe that was an example you said, right, Ruba?
Yes.
So if you think about an accident, if you watch a movie where a person has an accident in a certain way, this movie is sort of telling you or giving you a message with some belief probably around medicine or about your health, about healthcare, right? There is some, if you watch the movie, you might start to think, oh, like I should believe that, you know, anyone can, whatever, I can go see the doctor, or I'll, you know, I can, any doctor can heal me or bring me back. I don't know, right? But there is some message, right? There is some feeling that we get from the story, even if it's not true, even if there's not facts that might change how we feel, change how we believe, even if it's not true. Does that make sense?
Mm.
I know it's kind of like a big and complex idea. I think the best thing to do is, as we, the first 3 or 4 weeks, we'll really get to see, read different stories and read different narratives. And exactly like you, some will be true, right? Oh, this happened in my own life. And some will just be, you know, sort of fiction, right? Sort of stories that people created. And I think what I want to try to get at and introduce is the idea that all these stories have are teaching us something, or are saying something about what's normal to believe, what you should believe, what many people do believe. And I think this is one reason, like we briefly talked about last week, that stories are so powerful, right? That humans have told stories for so long. Great. Anybody else want to add anything? Yes, please.
Professor, I just want to add some idea to Fazal regarding culture. So there are some stories in cultures that reinforce that people believe, you know, they have to believe. And then even if those stories don't have facts, and it's very hard to find the facts, but because it's been around for so long, and some people in that religion believe it, and it's more common to be true stories, because it's like you say, it's reinforced in that culture.
I love it. I love everything you said, Nori. I'm just going to say I agree. And I sort of tried to explain that just by that idea by saying stories, beliefs, and culture. Again, we're going to start to talk about culture a little bit next week. But some stories reinforce cultural beliefs, even if those stories don't have facts. And I love that example. And I know, again, people were saying about religion, we can use this example with religion. Absolutely. And I love that Ruba said also movies, you know, in a certain way. Americans sometimes not of course during the pandemic, but Hollywood movies and TV shows sometimes feel like religion to me for Americans, because Americans watch so much TV, watch so many movies. So those beliefs in those movies, whether they're facts or not, like Ruba was saying, don't believe everything you see, because we start to believe them, right? And again, we'll look at more examples of this about cultural beliefs. But I love that example, right? So some stories reinforce cultural beliefs, even if those stories don't have facts, right? Or even if they aren't true. And then the other thing that I heard Nori say there is about time, right? Time and tradition, they play a role here, right? This affects how the stories, what the stories do to us. Time is a big factor, right? How long have we been telling those stories? How many times has a story been told, you know, over and over and over again? So I think that's really important too. Beautiful, really rich, really beautiful ideas here. Anyone else want to add anything in the chat, or just join in before I would move on here with my example? Cool. So in the next slide, I really want to reinforce this idea that Fazal is just sort of getting at here. So what I want to start to introduce, and like I said, Ruba, you'll recognize this word ideology. We're going to talk about it, like I said, in a different way than in 325, but there's this same idea. So I strongly believe, and now even if you look at I know we have a lot of, I read in your letters, a lot of people took psychology classes or early childhood ed classes. And I strongly believe now, psychologists are showing us that stories are really powerful because they give us some beliefs that we can use to live our lives, right? And I'm going to introduce an academic vocab word here, and that's ideology, right? And an ideology is just what we believe, right? Something that we believe. And sometimes it's even more powerful. It sort of guides us as we think about our choices. It guides us about what's good and bad, what's right and wrong. And I have this really short and simple example that I hope makes sense before we practice this a little bit. So for example, if I tell a really short story, a one sentence story, okay? And the story here is, my friend worked very hard, saved money, and bought a house, right? I'm going to say, I'm suggesting, or I'm asking you to think about that even in this really short one sentence story, there are beliefs, there are ideologies inside of that story, right? So for example, you need to work really hard to get money, right? Now, again, is that a fact? Well, in the United States, I'm with you guys. Probably that is a fact, right? But there still is some belief here, right? There still is some feeling. Then maybe we could say another ideology, another belief that is a part of that story is saving money is important, right? And then maybe we could even say that there's a third one, buying a house is a good goal, right? Now, again, we could talk about, is this a fact? Is this right? Is this wrong? We can talk about that. But what I want to ask you all to think about is, does this make sense that even in a short example story like this, there are ideas, there are beliefs, there are ideologies connected to these stories? Does that make sense? Rahila's nodding, Ruba's nodding. If this doesn't make sense and you go, Jeff, it's just one sentence, what are you talking about? Tell me and let's talk about it.
And there's in some cases, Professor.
Yes.
Some people work very hard and they cannot save money or they cannot buy a house because they're not earning much. So
good. I love it. And see, now you're getting at something. I don't know, Nora, I don't remember, forgive me, Nora, if you took W340 or if anyone took Professor Fali's class or talked about this idea of the American dream, right? The American dream, yes, the American dream is a story for sure, but are there facts with that story? To your point, right? Nori, like,
yes,
yeah, okay, it's very nice to say, hey, get a good job and work really hard and then buy a house. Like, that's nice, right? And I think that the beliefs underneath it are nice beliefs. But then you're asking another important question. And again, we're going to kind of get there next week. And this is a critical thinking question, which is, okay, I think I understand the beliefs. I think I understand the ideology connected to that story, but is it true? Or do I agree with it, right? Or is it possible, you know? Is that kind of the idea? That's what your comment made me think about, Nori. Does that make sense?
Yes. And also depends on what kind of work or what, it depends on different majors and educations.
I agree. I totally agree. Totally agree. So how about another short example here? I'm going to sort of come up with one right now. So let's see if I can think of, let's just look at, again, this really short example for so many students, whether they're students like you guys who came to the US as adults or students born right here in the United States, right? When I was teaching at UC Davis, I saw this belief from, students born in America all the time. I went to school to get a bachelor's degree so that I could get a high paying job when I graduate. Again, let's not even talk about the facts. We can talk about the facts next week, but what kind of beliefs do we see in this really short, simple story? Anybody?
Me. That the belief that if you get more education, you will make more money.
Yes. Perfect. Absolutely perfect, Marta. Perfect. Good. What else? I love it.
It's and there's some true fact to that as well, you know, because every time you get some education, you will earn more money than the other person that never went to school.
Love it.
So
Okay.
there's a fact.
I think you're right. I love Nori. Nori's going to be our like fact. I love it. Like, are these beliefs true? Which is exactly that's like me too, Nori. That's sometimes I think about it too much. I'm like, wait, what's this culture? You know, I completely understand. But I love what you said there, Nori, which is okay. Education is important. And here's my question now: is college the only place to learn things, or the only place to get an education?
No.
I heard someone say no. Right. And again, I love teaching at college, you guys. I'm not saying college is bad, but I think when you hear this kind of story, there is this feeling, there is this belief, right? Right? College is the only place or the best place to get an education. And like you said, Nori, I know many, many people. Maybe they don't have time, maybe they don't have money, they can't go to university, but they're extremely intelligent people, right? They learn a lot. They have a great, they learned a lot just from their own life and their own experience. So again, I'm not, I have no judgment of value at all. I just want us to practice starting to look at stories, even if these are really short, kind of easy examples, and going, what's the meaning? You know what I mean? Like, what's this story telling me about what to think or what to feel or what to believe? And I think for, at least for, hopefully if you're watching at home on the recording, but I think for our 7 students here, it seems like this idea is making sense. Are you guys with me?
Yes.
Nori's with me. If you are, Rahila, you look, thumbs up. Are you okay? I think Rahila's like me. Perfect. Marta says yes. One time last semester when we're doing everything on Zoom, and one time a student took a picture of me. We were having a one-on-one Zoom conversation, right? We were talking about an essay that she wrote, and she took a picture of me and she goes, "Oh my gosh, Jeff, your face is so funny." And it was like your face, Rahila. I was like looking at the screen, like very focused, thinking very hard, but she was like, "Your face." Forgive me, Rahila, forgive me. That's my thinking face too. Like, what's going on here? Okay, so I'll ask one more time, and then I've got a longer example for us to practice. This makes sense? Trying to find ideology, trying to find belief inside of stories. Questions? Speak now, or I move on. Moving on. Okay, so as I say here, just to reintroduce this idea or give you a very clear definition here, I'm talking about ideology. Ideology is a noun. It is the set of ideas and beliefs of a group about a specific topic or idea. And you guys had great examples here, but just some example sentences. That political party has a very strong ideology about religion, right? That political group has a strong belief about what religion is good, what religion is bad, how to live your life, all those kind of things. Or she has a very strong ideology about what men and women should do. And of course, if you've been in the US, we're having, I think, really big conversations right now in the United States about ideology, right? What makes a person a man? What makes a person a woman? What is a womanly thing to do? What's the right thing for a man to do? I think this is a big debate we're having in cultures all over the world. But certainly, if you've been in the U.S. for a couple of years and you ever see the news, this is a big topic. And so today, I want to practice this story around something called language ideology. Again, I keep thinking of Ruba because we talked about this in 325, but we're going to talk about this not as much in detail, Ruba. So language ideology just means having strong beliefs or feelings about a language or how a language is used. Now, for example, language ideologies might be one language is the best language, right? So maybe some people really truly think English is a powerful language, and if I speak English, it will help me make more money. So English is the best. It's, you know, it's somehow objectively the best language. Or some people might believe, and this is true in all languages, oh, using idioms or slang is not correct or good language. When young kids use, you know, words that the adults don't know, it's, oh, that's bad language. That's bad, you know, unintelligent language. Or somehow writing is the best use of language. You know, we're in this advanced literature class. I'm going to ask you to write. I think a lot of cultures have a belief and ideology that, like, well, if you can speak, that's one thing, but, you know, truly writing is somehow the true form of language. Or there are things that you should or should not do, right? There's certain words you shouldn't say. That's true in all languages too, right? Some words are so bad you should never say them. Or there's a right and a wrong way to use language, right? Some ideologies, also at the end here, as I say, including language ideologies, can be very dangerous, right? So, and I know everybody in this classroom knows this because you've seen this either at home or here in the United States. When you're obsessed, I think when humans are obsessed with right or wrong, there's only one right way to do things. I know the one true answer. That kind of ideology can, of course, be very dangerous, right? Because when people are so certain of the one right thing, you lose the ability to do critical thinking. I was thinking about this week getting ready for our classes, you know, the opposite of critical thinking is I know exactly what the truth is and I will not listen to any other possible ideas. There's only one way. And that is like, you know, metaphorically speaking, that is like the death of critical thinking, you know. So I think ideologies are connected to this idea. And again, I'll just say, instead of thinking about language ideology specifically, Ruba, what we're going to start to do is look at ideology in a wide range of different stories, right? True stories, made up stories, poetry. We're going to start to see some of these beliefs and how stories communicate those beliefs as well. Any questions about these language ideology examples, or can you think of other beliefs that people have about language, you guys?
Can I say something?
Always, Ruba. You know, I always want to hear from you.
Some people used just letters in texting. It's just like, in my opinion, for example, so some people do not know this abbreviation for goes for what.
Got it. Love it.
So this is a type of ideology.
Good. I think so too. And what do you think it means? What do you think it shows about the people's belief? What do you think it means?
I don't know. Some people know it, some people don't know.
So let's say there's a person who will never use an abbreviation, right? They only write in full sentences in their text message. What do you think? I love that example, Ruba. What do you think that says or implies about that person's ideology? What do you think that person believes? We're just guessing now, but what do you think?
He just wants to be clear and everyone can understand him.
Got it. I love it. And I'm going to add something there, Ruba. So maybe there's a belief under there that says, ooh, abbreviations are not clear, right? I want to be clear, so I don't use abbreviations. Oh, that means abbreviations in text message is not clear, right? I think that's an example of the behavior, the action meeting the belief, potentially, right? So I love that.
There is a sentence that said, if something is clear for you, maybe not for someone else.
Yes. Now we're getting at something.
You say about something, oh, it's very easy, but for someone else, it's not easy. At the beginning, for you also, it was not easy.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love the texting example, Ruba, because too, and I'll ask everybody here, you know, some people have really strong opinions about emojis, right? About putting emojis in your text messages. Can anybody here, either in the chat or just if you want to share, do people have strong feelings about abbreviations or about emojis in text messages? Anybody have any experience or any ideas?
Well, it's an easy way to, you know, avoid typing big sentences.
Yeah.
And mostly it is used for text messages, not in our like official work.
I love it.
So we often use it for like between friends or when we are texting or
I
messaging.
love it. Nor, I love that you talked about emojis in texting, and then you said at work. Now, I think, well, I mean, I don't think I'm telling you guys now. This is true. There's some ideology there. If there's an ideology that says, okay, emojis are okay for texting your friends, but they're not okay for an email at work, what's going on there? Like, what's the belief there? What do we think?
Professor Jeff, I think when it's come to language and writing, in the writing, whatever script you write is also is telling about yourself. Write a report or email with a bunch of misspells and mispunctuations and sentence structures, mixed up sentence structures, that will tell you you're not really well educated person. So
I love it.
it's also it's so the other person believe on your intelligence. You know, it's like if you do well, you write well scripts and formal well scripts, and it tell you also that it's you use the right language, you use the right structure, and also they believe you're an intelligent person.
I love it. I love that, Nori, because again, Nori, ideology expert, because you're exactly. I think you made this connection to what people believe about intelligence, right? Is a person smart or not? Uh-oh, they spelled a word wrong in their email, or they used an emoji in their email. And of course, I know for language learners, and I know from my backwards experience, right? When I lived in Colombia and was living in Spanish, of course, if you are in another country and you're trying to speak that language and you make an error, all of a sudden it's like, uh-oh, this person isn't intelligent, or this person doesn't know what they're talking about, right? And so I think you're absolutely correct, is to link language and intelligence. Absolutely. I think that absolutely makes sense. And I just sort of put in the chat here, Martha was saying the word improper. So I sort of said, Martha says emoji are improper in emails, but maybe they're okay in text messages, right? And then Nori was saying, well, if you make a typo in a text message, let's say you spell a word wrong in a text, it's like, okay, that's fine, maybe. But in a work email or in an essay for school, it's like, ooh, this person's not really intelligent, right? So again, we're making connections between actions, in this case, facts, right? Sort of not a specific story, but beliefs that we have about the things we do and the way we use language. So I love those examples. Anybody else, this idea about language, stories, ideology, anybody want to add anything?
So the first one, Professor, like one language is the best language.
Yeah.
Sometimes we see there are languages which are rich. From rich, I mean, if you want to search about something in that language, you can easily find it on Google, or you can easily find a book for that certain topic in a specific language, which you may not find in any other language. It's always easy to look for something, and you can easily find a resource for that topic in a language. For example, in English, we'll talk about English. If I need something, it's way easy to find that in English as compared to any other language.
Yes.
So
now I will say that is a fact, right? Like that is a fact. Now, but here's my question. Does that mean English is better? Do you know what I mean? Like that's it. So one is a fact. There is a lot of information in English on the internet. That is just true, right? Now, then we can go from a fact to a belief, which is, and that means English is better than a Mandarin. That means English is better than one of the 200 languages in India. Do you know what I mean? Does that difference make sense, Fazan?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got your point.
Good.
We know this is a fact, but also people like their own languages.
That's right. Exactly right. So we have facts, and then sometimes we make up ideas, we make up beliefs. This is especially true for languages that don't have a strong history of being written down, right? We have a lot of students in this class, Arabic speakers and Farsi speakers. Those are beautiful languages with tremendous written history, right? There's hundreds of years, things that were written in those languages. But that's not true for all the languages in the world, right? I mean, some languages are mostly speaking. And again, so if a person believes, oh, writing is the truest, most pure form of a language, well, then that might mean that they believe, oh, well, you know, there's not a lot of literature written down in whatever, in this other language. So whatever, it's not as good or whatever. I just think when you start to see the facts, I love that we're talking about that word, when you start to see the facts of how we use language and interact with language, and again, starting next week, how we use stories, how we interact with stories, I am always amazed at how many beliefs are kind of inside those things, right? How often we make up feelings or make up beliefs that we kind of live our life by from those examples. So yeah, but again, you're right. I mean, Spanish, English, French, these are the languages that you can find a lot of information on the internet in those three languages. Arabic as well. But you know, if you want to find written information in some of the other languages around the world, you know, there's just not as much. So I think you're absolutely correct there. You're absolutely correct there. Cool. Any other ideas about language ideology on this page? And then we're going to practice this using a real life religious example. Any other ideas about this? Let me check the chat. Nada. Okay, cool. So we're going to just sort of do one analysis of this using a story from the Bible. Again, Ruba, you're our expert. You can help people out with this. So there is this story in the Bible called the Tower of Babel. This is from the book of Genesis, chapter 11. Very famous story, at least in the United States, for me growing up as a Catholic person in the United States. This is a story you would hear all the time. Can I see? I'm just, no, it's fine. Keep your screens off. You guys are good. So Tower of Babel. And if you look up this word Babel in Learner's Dictionary, I'll put this in the chat. Again, you're going to see me talk about Learner's Dictionary a lot. So, you know, but I'll still keep putting in the chat for you. If you look up the word Babel on Learner's Dictionary, it's a noun. And it means a confused mixture of sounds or voices, a babel of languages, a babel of street sounds. So this confused mixture, this is the most important idea. Right now, I'm spending time with my sister and her family. I'm around my 9-month-old nephew. He's 9 months old. He can't talk yet, right? But he's starting. He's doing the ba, ba, ba. And you could say babies are babbling, right? Because there's no meaning, right? They're just sort of babbling, making sounds, making words. There's no meaning here. And this word, I'm showing you guys this word babble, because this meaning of a lot of people talking, or it doesn't make sense when people are talking, comes from this story of the Tower of Babel. So that's how powerful, I just want to say, speaking of stories being told over and over and over again, that's how powerful this story is. It is over 2,000 years old, but this word, which was actually a city, a place in the Middle East, is still has this meaning in our 2021 English language, right? That's how powerful this story is. So I'm just going to read through the story. It's pretty short. This is it. And as I read through the story, maybe you already know the story, maybe you don't, but I just really want you to start to see what kind of beliefs, and this could be about language, but it could also just be about any kind of beliefs, what kind of ideologies do we see in this story? So I'm going to read through it, and as you listen and as you read on your screen, again, that's what I want you to do, is to think, okay, Jeff's reading this short story. What kind of ideology is in this story? Makes sense, what I want you to do. For now, I'm going to assume silence means yes, it makes sense. So Ruba, especially since we did this similar activity last semester, if you want to think about not language, because we talked only about language, Ruba, think about what does it say about culture or society or different cultures, think about different countries potentially, right? Martha says yes. Okay, great. All right, so I'll read the story and then maybe I'll put you back in small groups, but we'll see. So here it is, the Tower of Babel. Chapter 11. So now the whole world had one language and a common speech. As people moved eastward, they found a plain in Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches to the heavens, so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth." But the Lord came down to see the city and the tower the people were building. The Lord said, "If as one people, speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and confuse their language so they will not understand each other." So the Lord scattered them from there all over the earth, and they stopped building the city. That is why it was called Babel, because the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From there, the Lord scattered them over the face of the whole earth. What kind of ideologies do we see? And actually, I'll leave this on the screen and I'm going to let's be sort of silent. I'll put 3-minute timer. Just read the story by yourself and think about it. In 3 minutes by yourself, I want you to be able to say something or type something in the chat. Tell me one ideology that you see. Okay? So I'll give you 3 minutes of independent, solo, silent work. Let me set my timer here. Okay. All right, so that was even more than, that was a few minutes. Hopefully you got some time to think about it. I would love to just have a little sort of critical thinking discussion here. What kind of ideologies do we see in the story? It could be ideologies about language, or again, ideologies about culture, about people, about housing, about anything. Because again, this is a little short example of what we're really going to start to do in much more detail next week. So what kind of ideologies do we see in this classic, very old story?
I think it's reading this passage. It seemed like it started with one. It started with one language, but later on is scattered to different languages around the world.
Yes, that's exactly right, Nori. Yes. Oh, let's do this. I want to make sure, actually, let's do this. So I have a slide too. So let's make sure we understand the narrative here. Again, narrative, so I'm giving you some academic vocab words here today. Ideology is really a sort of academic word for beliefs. Narrative is like an academic word for story, right? So we can say, before we even talk about ideology, Nori, let's make sure that everybody, who I see Marta, I'm going to come back to your comment. I see it in the chat. Thank you, Marta. But let's make sure we understand the narrative. We understand what happened. So exactly like Nora said, first, everyone in the world spoke the same language, right? That's exactly what you were saying. Then what happened? So we get that. They found a plane. They said to each other, let's make bricks and bake them. They used bricks instead of stone. Then they said, come, let us build ourselves a city with a tower that reaches the heavens so that we may make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered over the face of the whole earth. So everybody spoke the same language. They moved eastward. And what did they do when they moved? Yep, they built homes. And what else did they build?
Tower.
Yep. Good. Then what happened?
They come up with their own language.
Well, we're going to get to the end, but then I'd say we're right about here. What happens when they start to build the tower? I think there's a lot of ideology in this paragraph here. So in the narrative, what happens? It says the Lord, what did the Lord do?
Okay. Confuse them with their language and
Good, good. I love that. And even before that, came down to destroy the tower. Now, again, we're sort of practicing some of the stuff we're going to be doing for the next month or so at the beginning here before we get to poetry. So we start with stories first, and then we go to poetry, and then our novel. But as we practice recognizing the narrative, right? What happens in the narrative? So first, everyone in the world spoke the same language. They moved eastward. They built homes and started to build the tower to reach heaven. The Lord came down to destroy the tower. The Lord gave all of the people different languages, scattered people all over the world. So this is like a very, short version of this story, right? And again, just to make clear, if you're watching the recording at home, this is what I mean when I say narrative. Narrative means what happened, beginning, middle, and end, right? This happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. That's the narrative, right? Now, once we understand the narrative, we can, now, and this is important, so I'll say it again. It's hard to analyze ideology. It's hard to analyze meaning. It's hard to analyze cultural belief if we don't understand the narrative. So that's why it's really important to understand, do I know what happened beginning, middle, and end, right? So once we understand the narrative, then we can start to think about ideology. For example, in the chat, Martha says, the ideology, if they separate from God, it's not good. Martha, if you want to type a little bit more, or if you can't, that's fine too, but how do you think they separated from God? Do you think that in the story that the people were separating from God? And we could ask anybody this question, because Marta says the ideology is if they separate from God, that's not good. So let's talk about that. Or if someone has a different idea, what do we notice? Marta says building the tower is separating from God. Okay, I'm going to type some of this down. Interesting. Okay, good. What else? Either about Marta's idea or any other ideology that we heard in the story. And I'll go back so that you can see it. I'll also put this in the chat if you want to open this on your own screen. I'll put the link to this story so that you can open it on your own. There's the link, but I'll put this on the screen. What kind of ideologies do we see?
And that, Professor, I think in this ideology is there's a less or weak belief of God.
Say more.
So that's because it's blaming that Lord destroyed, tower and confused the language. So it's, I believe there's not a strong belief when it comes to Lord and God.
Okay. So you think, interesting. So do you think the meaning is the ideology there, or is the belief that might be sort of inside this story is people didn't really believe in God, or is like Marta was saying, they were doing things God didn't want them to do? Or can you say a little bit more, Nuri?
Or or they're not strong believer, maybe, because because they're blaming everything on God.
Interesting. Okay, interesting.
But because it's they think that God came down and destroyed towers and it's confused language.
Interesting. I love it. So Nori's sort of, I love that idea. Nori's sort of asking sort of what this story, like I said, I was raised Catholic, so I got this story a lot. I did not like this story as a child either. I thought it was very strange and confusing. So I love Nori saying that the idea is, oh, they're blaming God for this, so maybe the belief in God, their faith is not very strong. Interesting, really interesting. I love that. Anybody want to add to what Nori said, or add a new idea? What do we think? We're just doing, I'll just keep saying it since we brought it up on week 1. We're just doing critical thinking stuff right now. What do people notice? What kind of ideology? How about this? This is kind of like a direct quote now. I think there's kind of an ideology in this quote where it says, if as one people speaking the same language, they have begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. What's the belief in there? I mean, there's a lot going on there. What's the idea there?
The idea that if they're independent from God would be like more powerful, or no?
I love 2 words you said there, but especially I love Martha, powerful, right? So I do think that it's not it, right? I just want to make this clear because this will help us as we start to think about analyzing stories for their theme as well. Not all stories come out and say, hey, this story means XYZ, right? We have to kind of extract, we have to kind of take that information from the story. So it's not here like it says, and then God said, if everybody speaks the same language, that's way too powerful and I don't like that, so I'm going to stop that, right? But we do kind of get that meaning. If as one people speaking the same language, they've begun to do this, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible. Martha said, well, okay, there's an ideology, there's a belief that if everyone is speaking the same language, they'll be very powerful. They'll be too powerful. And in fact, they will be separated. This is where I'm going to add that word you used, Marta, from God. Now, again, I know this is a Bible story. This isn't a religion class, so I want to make sure that we're being very careful here. I respect all of you. I love all of you. This isn't about who's right and who's wrong. But I will just say this is a belief, right? We don't know that people would be too powerful or people would walk away from God. We don't really know, but like we were talking about earlier, using stories to sort of show a belief or communicate a belief to a group of people over time, I think Martha is correct. This ideology, is definitely in this story. Now, like I said, whether we today as individuals agree or disagree, that's, we could talk about that in a different class, but I just want to make sure that people understand and can see how that ideology is in this story, right? Because I agree with you, Martha. I think this is definitely in there. I think this is definitely in there. Anything else? Or otherwise, I have a question for you. Other examples? How about this? Again, just as an example, because I know this is a Bible story, sometimes we can have strong feelings about stuff like this, but we could even pick a sort of small example. Maybe this detail does not look like, oh, it's very important. But if you just look at this, the one that I highlighted, they said to each other, come, let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly. They used brick instead of stone and tar for mortar. I would argue, I'm going to tell you, anything that's in the Bible, anything that's in the Quran, anything that's in the I Ching, anything that's in these religious books, every word is important, right? Every word is telling us some feeling, or some belief, right? So what can we make a belief connected to this idea of bricks instead of stone? What's the meaning there? Why is that important?
Using different material and building.
Yeah, and what is this is right, if we say this is the facts that happen in the story, right? What do you think that tells us? What belief does that give us, Ruba?
Sometimes because when we use a brick, for example, it's cheaper than the what else? The stone.
Okay, Ruba says that maybe it's about cheaper. Bricks are cheaper than stone. Good. What else can we do to compare bricks and stone? What's the difference?
I think bricks may look better than a stone.
Okay, love it. I love it. Nuri says bricks may look better than the stone. Ruba says that that might be about cheap or cost. Marta says stronger than the stone. Yeah. Anybody else want to add to this? I see some people unmuted themselves.
I think stones are, to me, stones are stronger than bricks, but bricks are better. If you're making a tower, bricks can shape it better than stones.
More stable or better shaped, like you were saying. Yeah, it's hard to make a very tall tower with just the sort of normal shaped rocks. So that's why I thought of that word stable there. And that's like Martha's word as well, stronger, right? Anybody else want to add to bricks versus stones?
We can say old style and modern style.
Good, different style. I love that too. I'm going to also add, I have a question. I have an idea, I think. What is easier? Let's say you want to start building a house. What's easier, to make the bricks or to use the stones?
Bricks.
Which one?
Bricks.
Oh, did my internet? Hold on. Internet, am I back? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
I think my internet got strange for a second. I'm sorry. Stone is free. Martha says stones are free, so that's interesting. Cheaper. stronger. So what were you saying? Bricks more beautiful style. Bricks look better. I was thinking of this one too, this word labor. Like, what's easier to use? What's easier to make?
Bricks.
Yeah. Sorry, I was thinking about rocks. Oh, good. Yeah. Right. So again, so we've compared bricks versus stones, and in this story, though, we get this detail where the people say, "Let's make bricks and bake them thoroughly." What do you think that tells us about the people in this story? Did they what did they value, right, in their belief system? Did they value the cheaper, stronger? Did they want it stronger? Was it because they wanted to live? What, you know, they wanted to create a city where they would stay forever? Like, what do you think this tells us or could tell us?
They want to make some changes.
Yeah, like what kind of changes, Wen Chen, or for what reason?
Or
You just guess. Wen Chen, I'm thinking of your letter too. This is critical thinking. We're just guessing right now. We get to keep guessing, but like, what's your feeling? What's your guess?
maybe they want the getting better than God or something like that.
And that's like Martha was saying. That's very interesting too. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Great, great. And I love when Chen added an important idea there too, is in this sentence in the story, we do get this feeling of change, right? Oh, people were moving, people were starting new cities, people were changing. And that is all a part of the ideology that we see in this story. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Make it stronger.
Mm-hmm. Good. I love it. Well, and that works too when you think about, okay, they wanted to make the bricks stronger. Then they wanted to build this tower. Then they wanted to build the tower so tall they could reach heaven. And then, you know, and then we get the end of the story. So I love that idea about stronger too. That's great. That's great. What else?
Break,
What else? Maybe.
Professor
Yeah,
Jeff, breaks can be, breaks, yeah, breaks can be made by men, you know, human beings, and they can
internet.
create more breaks. And I think somebody mentioned before, and it's easy to work with, you know, when you're building, when you're making houses or building, it's easy to work with. And then they probably have some kind of technique how to make bricks, you know, and then instead of looking for stones and bringing stone from far distance, they can just make brick closely to where they're building.
Love it. I love that. So I think my internet was kind of in and out, but I heard, Nori, you're talking about if you're making bricks, you can make them anywhere, but if you're looking for stones, you might have to go very far and bring them to where you want to come. Is that right?
Yeah, and easy to work with bricks, like you mentioned before, and it's labor consumption as well.
Yeah, I think so too. I think for me, I think there's this ideology of the people in the story wanted to create a home, right? They wanted to create some place for themselves instead of moving, or like Nori was saying, trying to bring in stones from other places. Or I think there's that feeling of like setting something up, creating something new. Like when Chan was saying changes, right? Changes for stability as well. And I think that's why I always thought as a child when I read this story, like, I was so confused. Like, well, why did God want to punish them? What was going on? What was going on there? But I think the other thing that's a part of this story, and we won't, you know, you could take a whole class. I'll put this in the chat. Well, I'll show this in the link. So if you look at, I'll put the link in the chat. this story also is connected to this idea of creation stories, right? Now, you could take a whole class in the different stories from all over the world about where human beings came from and who was the first human being and what was the first language. And I mean, this story of the Tower of Babel, it definitely has this kind of, it's part of the Bible, of course, but there's also this feeling of trying to answer some really big questions, you know? Where did language come from? Why do we speak different languages? Why do people live in different places, different countries, different cities, whatever? So it's almost, I think, more difficult to try and analyze these stories because they're so old and they're trying to do so many things and tell so many, have so many different ideas. But we're not, you know, we're only using this sort of creation myth as our tester today, because the stories that we're going to read in the next couple of weeks here, I think they're a little bit more, the details are much more specific and easier to understand. What else can we say about the Tower of Babel and ideology here? I want to hear from maybe two more ideas, and then we'll finish up with this activity. How about the end? So what's the meaning here? I mean, do we all just agree with Marta that it's like, don't mess with God, don't try to be so powerful, God's gonna get you? What do we think? What's the end of this story mean for ideology?
I think it's that God gave the punishment to the human because they work as together and then they speak same language, and then they want to make some changes to touch the heaven.
Yes.
And then God maybe think that they can make it anything possible. So that God is kind of worried, and then so they come down and then mix up their languages so they cannot work as family or work together, something like that. I don't know.
Hey, everybody. So sorry about that. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
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 My internet is bad. Wen-Chan, I know you were just, I was typing. Oh, let me start to share my screen. I heard some of your ideas and then I dropped out. So, but I think I heard you sort of saying the meaning by the end of this story, when we finish this story, we get this ideology, we get this idea of a belief that human beings should not try to be more powerful than God. Was that the idea, or can you add, did I miss anything?
No, I think so.
Okay, cool. I love it. I heard most of what you were saying before my internet went out. Good. Can anybody else, any other, like the main belief, the main ideology, anybody else want to add to this from the end of the story?
I think in this sentence, like they say, this is why it was called bubble, because they're the Lord confused the language of the whole world. From that sentence, I think they're trying to say that that God don't want them to speak their language, and that God tried to confuse. I don't know.
Yeah, I love it. I'm going to kind of connect your idea to what Wen-Chan was talking about, which is, okay, there is this idea of power, doing too much. So, and Marta kind of said this in the chat too, that God did not want everyone to speak the same language because then they would be too powerful. Kind of like when Chen was saying, and then Martha was saying, God wanted humans to live all over the world in different places and to use different languages. And the way that God could do that, the way that God could put people in different places and speak different languages was to scatter them all over the world, right? So maybe there's an idea, there's an ideology that humans are better off, happier, healthier, more connected to God when they live in different places and speak different languages. Now again, I'm not even saying that this is the one perfect ideology, right? This is the one way to analyze this story. But I love listening to some of you guys. This was some of the idea that I had. Okay, well, maybe the meaning of this story, or maybe the ideology of this story, the theme, the idea that I want to take away from it is some of these last 3 or 4 ideas. And I think hopefully, even if you're listening and you're like, oh my God, I hate this story, or I don't know what Jeff is talking about, hopefully you can start to see the connection between the narrative, right, beginning, middle, and end, what happens in the story, the language that's in the story, versus the feeling, the belief, the ideology that we get when we read the story. And I think these ideas at the end of the PowerPoint here about human beings should not try to be so powerful. God wants humans to live in different places. I hope that you can see the connection between the narrative and those ideologies. So does that make sense? Ruba says yes. If it doesn't make sense, raise your hand, type in the chat, unmute yourself, tell me, Jeff, I don't know what you're talking about, so I can explain it more.
It makes sense.
Hey, I love to hear that. Yes, it makes sense. Perfect. Perfect. Because this, like I said, you guys, this really is where we're going to start for the next 2 weeks, is as you start to read these stories, as you start to think about some of these ideas, like especially the connection between narrative, language, culture, and ideology, we're really going to start to practice this. But instead of like, this story and this Bible story is what, 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs, we're going to get to do this in short stories and poems, and then by the end of the class, a 200-page novel. So trying to make those connections, like I said, from the narrative to ideologies to themes. This is kind of the big skill that we're going to practice in this class using literature. So anything else about this before I introduce the next lessons? I think because we have such a little tiny class, we'll probably finish a little bit early today, because that's mostly what I got in terms of the new skill. And then I just wanted to spend the rest of the class introducing the next few assignments and answer any questions. So last call about ideology.
I think we can move on to lessons.
When Shen's like, Jeff, stop. You'll find out when Shen, I don't mind silence. Sometimes people need a lot of silence before they feel comfortable speaking, but I'm with you. I understand. So
Okay.
Here's what I've got. Oh, actually, I need to add to this too, because, okay, hold on 1 second. I've got 3 things in Canvas that I'm suggesting for you guys to do. Click 6, 7, and 8. 8 is the vocab. Yes. Okay, good. All right. So as you can see on the screen, hopefully, I'm sharing my screen. Hopefully, as you can see on the screen, what I'm suggesting before next week. So in the next week, I'm suggesting that you complete lesson 6, lesson 7, and lesson 8. And I want to show you where those live in Canvas and how to do them so that it's clear. If you are a super fast person, I think this semester, my feeling is, my belief is that we're going to be going slow. But if you are a person who finished lesson 6, 7, and 8, and you want to go really fast, start reading and listening to some of the narratives. I will show you where that lives in Canvas. If you go to the home page, and if you go to course materials, PDFs, audio, etc., you'll see lots of different stuff for narrative writing right here, narrative writing. So if you're a person who goes very fast, you finish 6, 7, and 8, go there, do this stuff, right? But again, if you're a person going normal speed, all I want you to try to do is lesson 6, 7, and 8. So I'll show you where they live. I'm going to go to modules to show you where they live. Lesson 6 is called The Danger of a Single Story. Again, some of you might have seen this in other classes, but I want you to read and review the discussion guidelines. There's a TED Talk video. It's about 20 minutes, so give yourself some time to watch and understand, and then respond to the questions below. So the questions are, why does Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie argue that a single story is dangerous? Give one example of a single story that she discusses in the video. And then Ms. Ngozi Adichie suggests that these single stories can create bias against other people and other cultures. Do you agree or disagree, and why? Again, if you're looking at this saying, I don't know what to write, yes, of course, you need to watch the video before you can answer these questions, but it will be the exact same format, the exact same structure for the discussion activity that you already did for discussion 3. And I'm going to, or lesson 3, discussion 1, and I'm going to try to grade those as soon as possible so that you know sort of what I'm expecting and what a good grade looks like and all that stuff. So any questions at all about lesson 6?
Professor, I haven't done discussion from the previous. I will do it tonight, so you probably score it later on.
I haven't graded any of the discussions yet, Nuri, because a lot of people did lesson 1, and the syllabus quizzes, but the discussions, I think we only had about half the class, so I didn't grade them yet. I wanted to give people more time, and like I said, Nuri, I'll say it to everybody, if you're watching on the recording, there are no due dates. If you haven't done the discussion yet, you're not behind, right? You can do it whenever you can do it, but I'm going to sort of keep my pace. So you're all good, Nuri, is the short answer there. But any questions about lesson 6, how to do it, what to do, anything?
Excuse me, Professor. We should watch the video, but we should write our thinking about this.
Yes, it's like I was saying about make sure you understand what she is saying. Make sure you understand the ideas in the video before you respond to the discussion. So if you need to watch it once, twice, 3 times, whatever, I just want you to make sure you understand those ideas, practice writing about some of them, because next week, like I said, when we really start to look at longer written stories, we're going to use some of those same skills that you'll do in the discussion. So yeah, watch the video first, Rahila.
Okay, thank you.
I think you'll love it. I've made a lot of students watch it. It's not that hard to understand. You can watch with the captions. I think you'll get it. Anybody else questions about lesson 6? If not, I'm going back to lesson 7. All right, lesson 7. Lesson 7 is exactly like the syllabus part 1 and part 2 quiz, okay? It says it's a quiz, but here I've got 2 attempts. Need more, that's fine. But this is not a test where I'm trying to give you a bad grade. I'm trying to use these questions to help you understand and focus on the most important ideas from the reading that I want you to do. So I have a PDF here. This is not from a book. It's just for you to download. So instructions say, read the preface and introduction to Why Translation Matters. If you click this link, it will take you there and download right away. So again, you see, this is a longer reading. Give yourself time. Go slow, okay? So then the quiz act. Oh, and I also have recorded myself reading this out loud. So if you look at this and you go, oh my God, it's too much, I don't know what to do. Or if you're a person who prefers audio and sounds, let me change my settings here so you can hear my audio, share computer sound. I recorded myself reading this for you. So you can follow.
Why Translation Matters by Edith Grossman.
Can you guys hear my voice?
Preface and introduction.
Right.
Yes.
In 2007, Professor Maria Rosa Mendoza.
Okay, so you get me. If you don't have enough of Jeff's voice in your life, you can have more of me reading the book to you. So again, more ways for you to try and understand the ideas in the reading. So read the PDF. If you want to, listen to my voice, follow along, let me read the book to you, and then you're going to answer the questions below. And if you click on take the quiz, again, mostly it's multiple choice, true, false questions. So it was always Edith Grossman's dream to be a translator, right? You're going to find that information on like the first or the second page. So again, the idea is not to test you, but it's a way for me to tell you, these are the ideas I want you to find, right? And again, I try to make it very easy on page 11. So I'm not trying to make it hard. I'm trying to show you what I want you to understand from the reading. Any questions about lesson 7? Good. Silence means we're all good. We understand perfectly. Yes, yes, yes. And then lesson 8 is really the most easy and hopefully the most fun. And this semester, again, Ruba, you did some of this in E325. I'm going to do a little bit more because I think people really enjoyed it. So it's about the same reading, right? Read the preface and the introduction to why translation matters. That's this file that you see right here. If you click this link, it'll open it for you. Or again, if you want, listen to me reading, you can listen to. And then all I want you to do is follow this activity. So this lesson will be a chance to practice learning and using vocabulary from the book. In a Word document or in the text box below, I want you to 1, choose a word from the reading and include the page that you read it on. 2, copy and paste the definition. Just go find the definition. I suggest you use learnersdictionary.com, but if you have an online dictionary that you think is even better, all you got to do is, copy it and paste it into a Word document, and then write an original sentence. So in other words, your own new sentence using this word. And I want you to do this for 5 words. So for example, you'll see the word moonlighted on page 5. I think if we go in here, I can find it for you. Page 5, yep, here it is. So there it is, the introduction is on page 5. So the word moonlighted is here on this page. So I want you to choose one word. Tell me what part of speech is a verb. The definition says to have a second job in addition to one's regular employment. And then I have my example. When I was in graduate school, I moonlighted as a teacher's assistant at College of Alameda. So I just want you to do that with 5 words. You choose the words, you find the definition, and you write a new and original sentence, and then upload that document to Canvas for lesson 8. That's it. So lesson 6 is the discussion. Lesson 7 is really just a way for you to practice the ideas from the reading. And lesson 8 is more vocabulary practice. Once we get this is Ruba, again, I'm thinking of you. Once you do this chapter, Ruba, this is all we're doing from this book. After we finish this week, we're starting to go to fiction stories next week, okay? But again, this is a way for you to practice and understand some of these ideas between stories, language, ideology. Okay, questions now about the lessons. Because if there are no questions, that's what I got for today, you guys. So if you can, my suggested pace, do lesson 6, lesson 7, lesson 8. We'll talk more about reading strategies next week, but all I will say is, well, let me show you the slide. Ruba can tell you too, because she read some of this last semester. This book is going to feel very hard. That's okay. If you don't understand every word, that is okay. If you start to read and you can only read for 15 minutes and you need to put the book down, that is okay. If you only read 5 or 6 pages and you're only reading the page that I tell you to read in the quiz, that is fine. But what I'm really trying to force you to do is to push yourself, make yourself read something that you maybe thought you could never read, but the chance is really to push you. And that's why we're not going to do a big writing assignment about this. We're not going to do a big points for this reading, but there are really important, exciting, interesting ideas in this reading. And I'm a big believer in when you push yourself to read something that is harder than you think you can do, you grow, right? Your abilities and your skills start to grow. So yeah, here's my suggestion for one reading strategy for this book is, so this book's going to feel different and difficult. There's a lot of academic vocabulary. If you want to, you know, follow Professor Jeff's advice, don't stop and translate or look up every word. Just keep reading, even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes at a time. When you stop reading, ask yourself, wait, what did I understand? Don't focus your brain on what you didn't understand. Ask yourself, what did I understand? And if you really want to improve your reading in this class, what is amazing to do is after you read for 15 minutes, write for 5 minutes about what you remember. You could write in English, you can write in your first language. It doesn't matter. What we learn about language learning, research, I got to read kind of participate in a research study that was like this at UC Davis. When you write about what you read, even if you write about it in a different language, you remember more. So if you want to, you could try this as well as a reading skill, a way to build your reading skills this semester. So I'm not going to make you do it. I'm not going to give you points for it, but if you want to be a better reader, you could try it. Questions? That's it. Because otherwise, that's all I had to say today. Questions, ideas, concerns, fears. Get us out of here, Jeff. We want to go. I got my baby at home. Any last questions before we finish for today?
Just have one question, Professor.
Please.
This is not related to this. So this ESL 350, so when we pass this class, when we transfer to Sac State, I'm sure the additional writing classes that beside this that we need to take, right?
Yes. So, well, this class is, so if you've already taken W340 or English 300, you have your transfer level English already for Sac State. This class actually counts towards an elective. So if you finished this class and W340 or and English 300, you're going to have, I think, your minimum college writing requirement done, as well as one of the humanities electives done. So, and I do know you need this class, this humanities elective, you need that for a bachelor's in science or a bachelor's in arts. So, so this class is good for writing, but it's also good for humanities elective units as well.
But I'm sure there'll be additional writing class in that Sac State level, right?
Well, you know, whatever, even if you're a computer science major, you know, you guys are going to have to write. I mean, you don't. If you're a science major, you won't need to write a 10-page literature paper, right? But you will definitely need to write things for homework, for assignments, for even shorter papers. So yeah, the writing. You know, if you're going to continue on to Sac State, you know, the writing never stops, really. You know.
Yes.
Yeah. Great question. Yeah, of course. Any other questions about this class or anything? Any other questions?
Excuse me, Professor. I have a
Yes.
question. Because
Please.
in next semester I'm gonna transfer Sac State,
Yes.
but I never taking regular English writing, but I take ESLW 340 and this class. Is that good for the writing?
Yes, I will say, now I work at ARC, so it's easy for me to say good things, but ARC is one of the only schools in the state of California where you can pass an ESL class, ESLW 340, and get your credit for transfer level English. It is such an amazing, cool thing about our program at ARC. If you guys know people who want to transfer and are afraid of English 300, tell them W340 is such a great, I mean, I just think it's so wonderful for you guys to be able to take a class with an ESL teacher, especially if you took Professor Folly's class. I love her. She's amazing. And you could
took her class last semester.
Yeah, and did you have a good experience?
Yes, but
I love her.
I was writing for 8 pages. That's horrible.
Well, that's why, exactly. That's why you get your college, you get your transfer level, you know, you get your transfer level credit for W340 because Professor Folly, yeah, she makes you write like a college writing class, you know. So yes, if you pass W340, ESL W340, you already completed your transfer level writing. And if you complete this, like I said, you get additional elective units for whatever degree you choose to do at Sac State. And That's true at UCs as well. So if anyone's watching and thinking about UC Davis or another UC school, we have approval for ESLW 340 for both state schools and UC schools.
Oh, that's cool.
Other questions? Anybody else?
Yeah. Hello, Professor. And just I have a question regarding ESL 350. So my major is business and administration. So I'm transferring for next semester to Sac City. So is this one of the requirements for me, as you mentioned that?
Oh yeah, for Sac City, there's no, because Sac City, Folsom, Consumnes River, and American River are all within the same district. So all of the classes are you're all good there. For an associate's degree, whatever you need, everything that you took at ARC is you're gonna be fine within the same Los Rios system, for sure.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you so much, Professor.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Anybody else before we get out of here?
I have a question.
Yes, please.
Do you know how to contact with the financial aid center? Because I tried to call them and they always busy in line, so I couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah, I want to be kind. I want to be nice and respectful. I think counseling, financial aid, I think they need more people to work in those offices. So I think they can be very slow and they can be behind. All you can do, and Chen, is keep calling and keep emailing. I know I feel like when I try and help students, it's so frustrating and so difficult. So I wish I could tell you some magical, like the magical solution. But unfortunately, yeah, I think it's just really, really slow.
Because I contact them and I write email to them and they never respond. So I don't know.
I know. Did you try calling?
I tried calling a couple times, but always busy line. They were kind of like a B and the normal sound, and later on the B B B B B like that. So I don't know what's going on.
I know. I'm so sorry. It's like I said, I love ARC and I don't want to say anything negative about our campus, but I do think students have a really difficult time getting help from counseling and financial aid, and that makes me angry, and I'm sorry about it. And I wish I could tell you, something more than like, maybe just try right in the morning, try calling at different times. But I will say, I think you're right. I've heard students. So sorry about that, you guys. I don't know if it's the rain or the storm. I don't know what's going on. It's terrible today for me. So Winchan, I don't know if you heard me, but I was just saying, I'm so sorry. I think the best thing to do is just try to call at different times. I've heard students say that email does not work and you just kind of have to get someone on the phone.
Okay, I will try to call them again.
I'm so sorry. I wish I had better news for you. I'm sorry.
Anyway, thank you though.
Yeah, well, at least I can listen and say you're right. I mean, it's not good. I wish we were doing better.
Okay.
Anybody else before my internet dies again? We're at time. So unless you have questions, please, if you don't have questions, get out of here. Go be with your family, be with your babies, be with whatever you got to do. If you do have any specific questions, stay and I can answer them. But otherwise, I will see you all later.
Yeah, Professor, I have one more question. So I know this is not Yeah, I know this is
Yeah.
not belongs to you, but it's continuous. It's regarding the financial aid. So I called the financial aid office in different time, in the morning, in the evening, in the afternoon, but they